Well, I'm going to ask Bill something because I'm going to start it off.
There's Jerry working on one.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask Bill something. Bill, I know you said you collected when you were 8. Why'd you start collecting the beaver?
I don't collect the beaver, but I will tell you a story about collecting. For me, the transition beyond the album, which I've told a few people, it might be interesting story, was I was at one of the CSDA shows, or it was a Philec show Frank Bono ran, and very meekly and timidly went up to Alan Steinhardt and said, could I see some postal history? Well, what do you want to see? I said, well, my family's born around Windsor, or I was born in Windsor. Let me see down that way. So I was looking through some postal history. I said, oh, this one's nice. It was from Raleigh, Upper Canada, Chatham, and it was going to the tax authority, 1855. I opened up the first letter of my life, and it was paying the taxes on one of my relatives' properties. So now I liked postal history. So that is how I started with postal history. The first letter I opened, first stampless letter I opened, was paying the taxes on my family's property. That was pretty incredible.
We've got some questions. Sean Downey is asking, where do you find your covers? I'll direct that to Bill.
Well,
besides a dealer. Okay, then I'll get, do you want me to get somebody who's not a dealer to answer it?
We can answer it, you know, Sid, take it. And then
well, you can, you know, a good source are, of course, the many very fine dealers we do have, and Bill's one of those, but there's many fine dealers and auction houses to go to. There are times local stamp clubs themselves have small auctions. People give things to each other that they know they collect. And that's all something I find really exciting, is that when you see one collector share something with another to say, hey, I know you collect this. Here's a nice item that I know fits beautifully into your collection. So sharing with people what you know often brings a cover to you, or they tell you where something is located that you might be able to use within your collection. So that would be part of my response.
Okay, Stephen Friedenthal. Judges in exhibitions frequently ask about the rarity of items in an exhibit. How do you find out about rarity when you can't find any references?
You talk to people. You know, Steve, what you do is you talk to people. You go and look to sources to the extent you can find them. But there are always people who collect in these areas who can advert you to things. My experience in dealing with the Holy Land philately is that there are people with reference libraries of material that they've put together themselves that they haven't published, for example. And if you're lucky enough to have them share information with you, that would be a great thing. But the way the internet works now, as you know, and the way the world works, we communicate all over the world with people. And now we can get information that years ago would have been transmitted by letter, you know, over weeks and months. Now we get responses overnight, you know, from people just reaching out to them and asking them questions.
Also, many award-winning exhibits have been published. I know BNAF does that. That's a great reference in itself. If you're studying, I'm working on the straight jack cancellation and going through old copies and looking through the topics magazines, anything that's been written about the stamp, through the online resources, the online library, looking at published works, just to really understand what's potentially out there, looking at study group newsletters. Those are, for me, have been sources to try to figure out the rarity. And then, of course, once you do a census, like the covers I'm collecting, there are potentially between 50 and 60 that are known. I own quite a number now, and I have good images of about 35, 36 of these covers. Then once you have them, then you can start looking at some sort of, you have to establish the criteria within that group, and then say, how will then I categorize them, and does that give me any clues as to scarcity or rarity within this scarce group of covers? Bill?
Yeah, I could answer another question that's there. Jeff Newberry was asking, he's collecting Canadian prime ministers and Winston Churchill. And just as a suggestion, you could take lead from Ed, find the Canadian stamp with the prime minister on it, and then find an envelope or cover that has a prime minister free frank where he's autographed the front, or it's oftentimes a hand stamp in more modern time periods. I sold a very large collection of prime minister free franks, including John A. Macdonald, all the way up. And you can find at stamp shows, particularly a key for a suggestion, a hint. Look for meter mail of the modern era that has the House of Commons. Oftentimes it's a green meter, and a lot of times it's being sent by an MP. You can sometimes read the signature in the corner, or you turn it over, it'll say Office of the Prime Minister. And I have found things like that in dealers' dollar boxes, local club shows, and even at bigger shows. Sometimes people just overlook it. And collecting prime ministers is a fun hobby. I've never had anything autographed by Winston Churchill, but I think you know that something like that would be very, very, very expensive. But you can try and find things. Sometimes, and I can't remember the name, but it's the Speakers Club at the National Club in Toronto. They would often have people talking about certain things, and I'm sure that it's on the back of like 1930s and 40s and 50s postal stationery cards where someone is talking on a subject, the economy, the leaders of the world. I'm sure you could find a thematic card that's talking about Winston Churchill.
Yeah, and Bill, just to your point, which all of which were great, it's the ephemera. It's what we'll call the non-philatelic material that often will lead you to expanding what you're doing. That's great.
Yeah.
Bill Finley comments, great presentations. Thank you. Inspiring this collector of 55 years to go beyond the album. And Jerry Pietrowski, comment rather than a question. Make sure that you let friends and colleagues know what beyond the album you collect. I think that was just said. Right. Often they will have or find things that you can pass on. For example, socked on nose cancels on stamps. So now I'll comment. I collect primarily King George VI and Hamilton. And one of the things that I like about King George VI is I like collecting varieties and perforation errors and cracked plates and things like that. And why do I do it? It's just like I think Bill said. It interests me. There's nothing special about it except I'm interested. And Bill sent me an email today reminding me of and I'm not going to tell you where it is, of an imperforate error on a King George VI stamp. So how did he know to send that to me? Because he knows what I collect.
Mm-hmm.
What interests me.
So important.
Yeah. And
I think sharing what you collect is critical. I mean, that's when I learned, just a recent conversation, Ken, you made at one of our morning sessions, that you collect the varieties within the George VI. And looking at cracked plates, I thought I had a couple of those that I don't really collect. I wondered if he would be interested. So that whole issue of knowing what each other collect is very important. And getting a good mentor is really important. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed support from some amazing philatelists who encourage and comment and help you focus what you need to do and help you with resources. Just that's a critical piece as well. Getting a good mentor.
Getting on. Sorry, go ahead, Ed.
Well, I'm just going to say, sorry, Bill. The mentors don't have to be in this country.
That's right.
And that's very important because now that we have the internet and other ways to communicate with people more efficiently, you can find the experts in your area. Sid, you mentioned the Netherlands. You could email people in the Netherlands and practice your Dutch at the same time that you're, talking about the stamps and the perfs. Yeah. And chances are you'll find a mentor in that area more likely than you will in Canada, for that passion.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bill.
Well,
I was just, you going to go, Ken?
Yeah, to expand on that, I don't know if John Cramner is still on, but on Saturday we had a Zoom meeting of the King George VI study group. And there was a cover that John had a question about, and it's a service suspended cover. And we're trying to figure out how it got to Singapore or didn't get to Singapore. And okay, Bill's going to say something. And anyway, it was a great discussion, and we're still looking at it.
So continuing on the thread of share what you're collecting with other people, and they can point you in the right place. And there's a lot of people who are friendly and can help you. I was on the George VI meeting on the weekend, but I had to sign off because I had another commitment. But what I wanted to share was doing some online research. I found the original government correspondence of how mail to POWs in Japan, like the Hong Kong Sea Force Winnipeg Grenadiers, how the mail was handled, how it was carried, how many letters were sent, and on what day.
Wow.
And I don't think that information has been shared in the philatelic press. So I have that to send to my friends in the George VI newsletter. And the important part is, find people who can help you, because an extra set of eyes. Collecting in secret is fine if you want to do that. But if you can break out of your shell, and you're already here, right? So you're participating with a group of friends and fellow colleagues, we can help enhance your collecting enjoyment by finding things and referring you to that.
Can I just go on top of what you just said, Bill, because they're great comments. Non-philatelic auctions or other sources are useful sources for finding material, because you were talking about finding primary information. Sometimes auction houses that are abroad, in my experience, that sell art and other stuff, somebody comes in with a lot of a bunch of papers, and they don't really catalog them in any way that's referable to philately. But you might look at something and you might go, oh my God, now I understand why this happened or this happened. So I don't want to discount people looking to sources other than philatelic sources, for information that's historic, geographic, social, that will enhance their ability to interpret the material they have that's philatelic.
A good example of that was the Harris book that I read, Eldon House. The diary, you can see the script, and I can now recognize Egerton Ryerson's handwriting as he wrote to his daughter Sophie, who was married to one of Amelia Harris's sons. So whenever I see those covers, I go, oh, that's Egerton Ryerson's letter, and then I can check it out. But the letter, reading that other book that's not philatelic helps me with my collection.
Mm-hmm.
Underscores your point.
Speaking on Ed's comment about non-traditional sources, one of the recent APS Champion of Champion exhibits was built primarily on non-traditional auction house sources for philatelic material.
Very good.
And without exposing what it is, if you know, but yeah, like manuscript dealers, book dealers, antique collectible places, they get stuff too, and it's a very, very good source. There's a question there from Gregory.
Yeah, let me read Don Hedger first. Don's comment is, as has been mentioned by presenters, let people know what you collect and why. Show people your examples. Show what you are up to in your club at show and tell. Don't hide in the dark. And that kind of leads into Gregory Bound's comment. Sharing what you collect used to happen at stamp club meetings. How do you suggest this connectivity happens in these COVID times? Well, actually, that's quite easy. Again, you've got to communicate with people in your club. I know my club, Burlington, we're communicating with each other. I've been trying to encourage Zoom meetings. So far, that hasn't picked up. And a lot of people think that having Zoom meetings is all that expensive, and it's not. For about $20 a month plus HST, you can have your own Zoom account, and you can then create your own Zoom groups. And that's what I did. I got my own account, and I use it for a number of things: PSSC meetings, Royal meetings, you name it. And that's the way you get connected. And people overseas make connections, join societies. COVID's gotten away, but we can overcome.
Newsletters, journals, you know, in ad sections. You know, many newsletters and journals have sections asking for people to contribute. There's nothing wrong with somebody saying, you know, collecting 3 penny beavers, collecting this, collecting that, looking for squared, circled cancels, you know, because people will then know what you're collecting. There are those, quite honestly, who believe that if they tell the world what they have, you know, bad people will come after what they have. And I can understand people's worries about these things. At the same time, our hobby prospers when we share information, you know, even though, as Bill properly pointed out many times very well, that knowledge is power. I think knowledge of what you collect is power, because then you're more likely to get access to it.
And if Steve, if he's still online, he was talking about exhibiting and not having information about rarity. If you have a particular question you'd like to share, we might be able to answer it for you right here. Or if anybody else has a particular question about other areas to collect or suggestions, the big impetus right now is tending towards what Ed's touched on, which is social philately, or even display class, where you can include ephemera. Like for instance, the Tragically Hip one that I have that I'm doing for fun, I could include show tickets. I could include the label of wine they're doing. I could show their, you know, recent foray into other modern businesses, you know, record albums, CD cover cases, jam it in the frame, because the philatelic world is very welcoming in terms of exhibiting. So you can be very, very creative.
Well, you know, Bill, in that regard, the award-winning exhibit by the late Mr. Congrove on Hamilton, you know, was very popular in the United States, particularly as the Broadway show was out. And people who weren't very familiar with Alexander Hamilton's life really started looking at his exhibit, you know, and it was an extraordinary exhibit, but that even made it more so. So I loved your idea, as a matter of fact, about the Tragically Hip, and I'm sure people could use that for many musical groups or productions. I think
Absolutely.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Pick your favorite song and go collect philately around it. It makes you understand the lyrics, because you're looking at a stamp show going, okay, I need a buffalo. Okay, now I got a buffalo, right? I need a whatever. So.
Okay, 2 more to read. Jerry Piotrowski, although we all miss the personal contact and interaction, Zoom and other platforms can keep us in the loop by sharing and discussions. Then we go on, Bill Finley, regarding sharing, Owen Sound Stamp Club does regular Zoom meetings with presentations and is now starting Zoom auctions. All are welcome, not just local members. Now, I know, again, all the clubs that I belong to, a number of clubs are having online auctions as well. I don't know how well they're working, but I know they're having them. And it's like everything. This is a learning curve. How to use Zoom for virtual auctions, how to have virtual exhibits. And I'll tell you one thing, once personal meetings start again, these Zoom functions are going to continue. It will become a part of philately.
We will.
Yeah, you know, can I just put a plug in, you know, for the newsletter of the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada. If people want to advertise club meetings in that newsletter that are Zoom meetings, they can do so. You know, we're open. We want people to do that, because, you know, on this call, look at what we had. We had people from coast to coast. We had somebody from England, you know, and that's what's happening in all these Zoom calls. And people are sharing information and material. And, you know, something that happened to me, I was put in touch with somebody as a result of a webinar in Honduras, you know, that I never would have imagined I'd be or a person I would be communicating with. So you just don't know what will come of the communications. And think of a year ago, we were all struggling to figure out how to connect with one another because we couldn't get into the same place. And now we have an abundance of riches, so to speak, because we now have these virtual platforms we can do.
You can
Ed,
Zoom
Ed,
calls every day.
Ed, does the Royal website have a list of Zoom meetings? Maybe that's something that could be put on a page.
That's a
On
good
the-
question. You know what? I would have to talk to Robin Harris about that, but I will raise that because we're having a board meeting on Sunday. So I can do that. It's all a question of information in and information out, Bill. We've been asking people consistently to provide us with information for the newsletter. I can understand why you mentioned the website. The more we get, the more we can pass on to others. So I appreciate the enthusiasm. Thank you.
Just
Okay,
one final thing I want to say that mention about sharing with people, and not because Bill is here, but sharing with dealers what you collect is super important. And I always was very pleased when I would go to a show or a dealer get in touch with me and say, hey, I've got a little package for you. And we go to a show and there'd be 4 or 5 dealers who would catch you and say, hey, got this here for you, interested. So it's very important to let the dealers know as well, because they've got good access to information to other stuff that we don't have. So
Sid, let me share a story. This is really funny. And the key to what Sid said is make sure you repeat to the dealer what you collect so they remember. Here's an example. One time I had 10 straight jack flags as a lot. And a dealer friend bought it from me and sold it to another collector friend, and I didn't even know, and I forgot he collected it. I probably sold you the lot that catapulted you into collecting it. And you know, when you have hundreds and hundreds of people telling you, I collect this, I collect that, you try to remember. But
Yeah.
that's one thing that it's funny you're talking about it. Connect with dealers and tell them what you collect. Well, I made a mistake. So the important lesson is repeat, right? Demonstrate that you're interested, and you know, just keep hammering away and remind us often.
Bill,
That was a
And,
funny story.
come across
in
another
that
one, Bill,
regard-
I'd be more than interested to purchase it, especially if it's to a foreign destination.
You know, Bill, in that regard, writing about your topic can't be discounted.
Yeah.
Even if it's a short note, newsletters, club bulletins, the Canadian Philatelists, BNA topics, you know, whatever it is, CAS, Postal History Society of Canada, I'll put a plug in, PSSC, you know, we'll get plugs in for everyone. You know, writing about your topic lets people know that you collect that. And as a result, you can get access to material.
Okay, one final comment, and then I'll ask Joe to open up the lines. One of the clubs around Oshawa have actually been holding parking lot auctions and sales. So Joe, for the remainder of the time, if you want to open it up so we can see everybody.
Sure.
that would be great.
Before we do that, I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank, again, Sparks Auctions for helping out with sponsoring and support. I want to thank Ed, Sid, and Bill. They took a lot of time out of their day to help present this and share their knowledge. I want to thank Ken for moderating here and keeping things organized and getting it all set up. And most importantly, I want to thank everyone for showing up. This is what it's all about, sharing knowledge, learning, and I'm going to pop everyone up to have a social time. So I'm just going to end this and thank you again.